Today we'll be talking about how to overcome separation for oneness as we embrace high vibrational living as we move into the new consciousness. Hi, my name is Reena, and today we'll be talking about separation. What do I mean when I say separation? Separation is when we see ourselves as being separate from another. When we create a community or a society or a world of separation, we are living in a very fractured consciousness. When I talk about separation, I mean separation in two ways. The first way is separation amongst ourselves. In this day and age, we refer to it as identity politics. The second way we separate ourselves is from every single natural element there is. So, let's first address identity politics and separation. Within identity politics, we see ourselves separate from another when we distinguish ourselves based on our differences, based on skin color, based on sexual orientation, based on religion, based on different issues and elements that we embrace, be it what we consume, vegans versus vegetarians versus meat eaters, our thoughts and belief systems. The more we identify with individual elements of this fractured society, we tap more and more into separation, and we are exacerbating the separation. We are seeing each other as different from one another. But we are moving into the new consciousness. And in the new consciousness, we are striving to move there in oneness, regardless of differences. So when we focus on all these external aspects of ourselves, be it the color of our skin, our gender, our profession, our socioeconomic status, our choices for what we consume, where we live, our religious choices, when we focus on all these external aspects, we stop ourselves from moving deeper into somebody and to go deep within, to feel the resonance, the deep, pulsing, authentic, spiritual resonance that someone holds within themselves. Because when we focus on these external aspects, we are different. But the more we focus on it and cling on to the differences, and either protect the differences or attack the differences or judge the differences, we keep building and pouring all our energy only on these external superficial aspects as opposed to going deeper within. Let me give you an example of this in practical day-to-day lives. So I'm an author of 3 books, and the person who commissioned my books is a much older Caucasian British gentleman. He didn't look at my gender. He didn't look at my age. He didn't look at where I've come from. He didn't look at the color of my skin. He didn't look at any of that before he made the decision to commission my books. He looked at the quality of the books. He looked at the story of the books. And he looked at how it would benefit people. And he based his decision on that. He went by merit. Differences didn't even exist. My gender didn't exist in his mind. The color of my skin didn't exist in his mind. It was all about what I had produced, the merit of the work, and how it would benefit the readers. And so when he commissioned me on this basis, I felt really excited because a part of me went, yes, I've achieved something real at a deeper level. And the other thing as well is when he commissioned my second book is called The Magdalene Lineage, Past Life Journeys to Sacred Feminine Mysteries. And it was all about how Mary Magdalene was teaching people about sacred feminine mysteries. And this gentleman looked at it and went, yep, that is a good story. That is a good book. Because again, it didn't matter whether it was about a sacred masculine or a divine feminine story. It was the story and the teachings that came out that he resonated with. So he went deeper into the story, into the essence of the book, to be able to make this decision. And by doing that, he was working in a place of oneness because the separation didn't matter to him. It was all about the depth and the essence of the work that was produced. I mean, I can tell you another story. My husband, as you've met in some of these videos, is a much older Caucasian gentleman, and he married me, a younger lady who is of Sri Lankan heritage from an Asian country, from Malaysia. Again, he didn't see any of these external aspects. I didn't see any of his external aspects. We connected then, and we still connect at a very deep, real level. By doing so, we have bridged age gaps, we've bridged cultural gaps, we've bridged all sorts of gaps, because we are resonating with the deeper essence of one another. So if we play into the separation and the divisiveness of identity politics, if we look at each other just from external differences, we are then separating ourselves from one another. We are putting ourselves into tiny little camps, and we stop ourselves from going deeper into the person's essence. This then gives us a choice. We can keep playing with identity politics, continuously separating ourselves from one another. Or we can start looking deeper from the external and move deeper into the deeper essence of somebody or a community or a belief system, and actually understand the essence of where someone is coming from, or the essence of being that somebody is in. When we look and move deeper, these external dramas melt away. The external superficialities disappear. External is part of the being of the whole person, of the whole community, of the whole soul. It is just one part. But the deeper down we go, we will start seeing more similarities. We will start connecting to the deeper essence. And in that connection to the deeper essence, we will see and we will feel at one with one another. We will see and feel that oneness with one another. So that is one aspect that is keeping us in separation, is identity politics. The second aspect that's keeping us in separation is the fact that we see ourselves separate from all natural elements. And now I'm going to introduce to you a guest.
So this is one of the lights of my life, my little baby Maltese Terrier, Petal. I've got two. Angel will be featured in another video. But Petal is my beautiful little pet who loves waving at everybody. Oh, you're such a good girl, Petal. Yeah, you're such a good girl. About 3 years ago, my husband went overseas for work, and I went for a run. And what happened was there was a root that had arched above ground, and my ankle slipped into the root, and then I tipped forward and fell. And I sprained my ankle quite severely, injuring the ligaments and the tendons as well. So I hobbled back, I took a shower, and then my ankle really began to swell, and I couldn't walk. So little Petal, she made sure that every time I hobbled from one room to another, she was very, very close to me, weren't you, darling? And she made sure that I was okay. But little Petal also has a habit at night. When we send her out for her last toilet, she has a habit of going out and barking, don't you? And sometimes we actually have to go out and bring her back. But when I hurt my ankle, I looked at her, and she looked at me with these eyes, looked deeply into my eyes, and I said to her, darling, Mummy's hurt her ankle, and it'll be very difficult for Mummy to come and get you tonight. So can you just please go out, do your toilet, and come back immediately? And she did. Petal did this for a week while my ankle was still so swollen. And when I got a little bit of mobility back, she reverted back to barking and being a little mischievous self. And I wanted to share the story with you because I wanted to share the connection. Yes, the connection that we can have with animals and that we can have with plants. That we are actually connected, but we chose to separate.
So, I'm not sure when in history we as a species separated from the rest of the natural elements. When we first evolved, we were very connected to the natural elements. We were connected to animals, we were connected to plants. We used to hunt, we used to forage, we were very connected to weather elements. But somehow at some point we completely disconnected. And my theory is that we disconnected for two reasons. The first reason is that we saw ourselves as being superior to the other elements. I couldn't say why, but if you see quite a lot of for example, Hindu religions, for example, it states that humans in the pyramid of evolution, in the pyramid of reincarnation, Hindus believe that humans are at the top of the pyramid. That old adage, God made himself in our image. So we see ourselves as being superior to all other natural elements. And by seeing ourselves as being superior, we separated from the other natural elements. We didn't become cohesive. And the more we progressed technologically, the more separated from the natural elements we've become. So right now, a lot of us are not in tune with the natural elements. The second reason that I think we separated from the natural elements is because of language. We have different languages. So when we speak, we can understand one another if we understand the language or the dialect that we're talking. But we don't understand animals, and we certainly don't hear the trees. And because we don't understand the vocalization of the animals, we then tend to think that they are somehow separate from us, and perhaps even more inferior. And because we don't hear trees or the weather or rocks, we also think that they are inanimate and they're not sentient beings. In fact, it's only been very recent that we have started to see animals as being sentient beings. But the interesting thing about language is, even as people, when we communicate, 5% of the message is absorbed verbally, which is what we say. 25% of our communication is through intonation. So I can speak to you like this, or I can speak to you like this. I can say the same words, but I am communicating two different messages via our intonation. And 25% of our message is being absorbed via our intonation. And 70% of our message is absorbed through body language. So, I can talk to you like this, and I can use the same intonation, and I can talk to you like this. And then if I change my intonation and I can talk to you like this, you are getting different messages, even though my verbal communication is still very similar. Then there's the subtle aspect of our communication. The energy that we hold. If there is an emotion, we are continuously radiating that emotion. And it's an energy, it's a subtle vibration. And we are also communicating subtly and overtly. Overtly is through the voice and body language and the physical aspects, the physicalities and the words we use. So it's very interesting to me that when we cannot understand the vocalizations of animals, we think that we cannot communicate with them, but actually we can, because they too use intonation, they too use body language, but they also embrace and they're tuned into the subtle energy that all of nature has. So when I spoke to Petal about my ankle, she understood, perhaps not the words, but she understood the intent. She understood the objective. She understood my emotions, because we connected. I can give you another example of this non-separation between ourselves and the natural world. About 3 years ago, in our house, we saw about 20 bees buzzing around in our house. And this happened for about 5 days. We would shoo them out, and both my husband and I, we love bees. So we wouldn't kill them, we would shoo them out. And this kept happening for a week. And we thought, well, this is too much. Where are the bees coming from? And we realized that the bees were building a hive in the eaves of the roof of our house. And we thought, oh, this is not good. We love bees, but we don't want to coexist with 100 bees in the house. It's not going to be good for us. It's not going to be good for the dogs. Not going to be good for the bees. So we looked at the eaves very closely, and we realized that we couldn't climb up to shake the hive off. And the only way to get them to go was to fumigate. And that broke both my heart and my husband's heart. So what I did, and I tried this just out of pure desperation, was I sat down and I, by intent, made a connection with the queen bee. And I call it with the consciousness of the queen bee. And I explained the situation to her very politely. And I said to her, listen, we have some lovely trees around. Would it be possible for you and your bees to go and make a home in these trees? Because we don't want to kill you. And I also explained why we couldn't coexist together in the house. And then I left for the weekend because I was teaching. I was doing some between lives training. And my husband called me that night and said, you wouldn't believe it, but the bees are gone. And I said, well, just give it time, let's see. And 4 days later, the bees were still gone. They didn't come back. And we were bee free, and we didn't have to kill a single bee, thank goodness, and they were safe, and they found another tree. And they were happy too. So you can say that this one time was a fluke. So 3 years later, we had another occurrence of bees being in the house, this time our downstairs living room. And again, the bees were coming in through the cracks within the cladding of our house. And so again, I tuned into the consciousness of the queen bee, and I said to her the same thing. But this time, I even pointed out a tree she could go to. And they went. No more bees. So why am I telling you the story? I'm telling you the story because we have disconnected from the subtle communication and the subtle connections we have with all beings, all natural beings. One of the workshops I teach is advanced vibrational training in the new consciousness. And it's amazing how when I teach my students to connect to nature, to the subtle energies of nature, how the world just changes in their eyes. Not because the world has changed, because our perspective has changed. the student's perspective has changed, and it becomes a much more rich, vibrant, diverse, subtle, magical place that we have forgotten that we exist in. So, coming back into connection with all natural elements will help us move from our separation from them to a place of oneness with natural elements. How do we then overcome separation to move into oneness? I will give you 4 simple steps that we can adopt today so we can all move forward on a path of moving beyond separation to oneness. The first thing to do is to meditate. And why meditate? Because when we meditate, we go within ourselves and we go in silence. When we go within ourselves, we access our deeper resonance. The more we meditate and the more we access our deeper resonance, the more we can then be sensitive to the deeper resonance of everything and everyone around us. So we can see past the external differences and move deeper into the internal similarities. Another reason why we meditate is so that we can access silence. We train ourselves to move away from loud external noises to the soft, subtle energies. And the more we do this, the more we are then connected to the natural elements, the subtleness of the natural elements. The sounds don't have to be loud and overt. They're very soft. And the softer we go, the more we tune out of the loud external clattering noises of, social media and information and our work and blah, blah, blah. The more we tune into the silence, the stronger our connections will be to the subtle energies. The second way that we can overcome separation and move towards oneness is through healing ourselves. It is through identifying our wounds, seeing where they've come from, and healing them. When it comes to seeing external differences, if something angers us or makes us sad or hurts us or makes us fearful, these external differences are triggering internal wounds within ourselves. And this could come from our past, it could come from our experiences, it could come from what we've read about, it could come from predispositions, it could come from all sorts of things. But we don't have to be victims to our wounds anymore. We can now be empowered to heal our wounds. And so all these external differences cannot touch us. They disappear. From a healed, whole place, we can then move deeper into ourselves and into everybody else and see the true deeper resonance. And this is the power of identifying our wounds, of being aware of our wounds and taking that step to heal our wounds. And again, you can heal the wounds using many ways. You've got you can go see a therapist, you can journal, you can do art therapy. You can do music therapy, you can go for walks, you can talk to somebody about it. If you do an internet search about ways to heal XYZ, you're just going to get pages and pages of ways to help you with that. The help is out there. All you have to do is just be aware of that wound and make a commitment to step forward to heal these wounds. A third way for us to be able to overcome separation and move towards oneness, to embrace high vibrational living in the new consciousness, is to empower ourselves to break away from any separation narratives, to break away from cultural conditioning and belief systems that make us see external differences. And once we're empowered to break away from these external narratives, we can then choose to look deeper into someone, or we can choose to move into the silence and start experiencing subtle energies from the natural elements. But this takes courage sometimes, because it is difficult to drop a belief system or cultural conditioning or peer pressure to hang on to a certain belief, to hang on to the hurt, to buy into a narrative, because otherwise you may be judged for it. So it takes a lot of courage. But it's all about the commitment that we make to move into the new consciousness, to embrace high vibrational living, and to be able to break from these narratives and look deeper into another, or just experience the subtle energies. And the more people who start doing this, the more people will understand, or the more you will be able to inspire someone else to understand, because it is through understanding that we move towards oneness. The fourth way, then, to overcome separation and move towards oneness is to detach from the dramas and to only flow with what resonates with you. Because once we start to meditate and we start aligning with our deeper selves, and once we clear all our emotional wounding, then we have access to our true resonance of our soul. Because, like I explained in another video, there is a difference when something is resonating with your soul and something is resonating with your ego. But that is for a separate video. When we meditate and when we heal our deepest wounds, we start resonating with the true essence of our deepest soul. And this is when we can determine whether something resonates with us or not. And this is not about judgment. This is about comfort levels. Because if something doesn't resonate, we will feel it immediately. Once we start resonating with the deepest levels of our soul, we can then start resonating with the deepest levels of everyone else's soul, and we'll start resonating with the subtle energies of the natural world. And then we have connection. And when we have connection, we have oneness, because that is when we see everything as though we see ourselves. So, the 4 steps again. To start practicing meditation, to heal the wounds within, and to move forward in a holistic manner. To empower ourselves to look within others, and to have the courage to break away from external pressures, whether it's belief systems, whether it's social conditioning, whether it's cultural conditioning, whether it's peer pressure. To break away from external pressures and be empowered to look within ourselves and within someone else. And the fourth way is to just honor our deepest resonance, honor our deepest soul resonance, and just move towards what vibrationally is resonant with ourselves. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.